In previous lesson, we learned to use OpenAI chat completion API with curl and how to run command lines in Emacs Lisp with the makeProcess function. Now we can use this knowledge to write our first Emacs command, which will send the prompt hello to OpenAI and append the JSON response in a buffer. Let's review what we did last time. We wrote an expression that called the function makeProcess, which starts an asynchronous process running a command that print in standard output foo and return after 1 second. Whenever the process status changes, the sentinel function is called. And if the process finishes correctly, it will append the standard output in the buffer name bar, and if it is killed, for instance, it will print out in the echo area error. So we are going to change a little bit that expression. Now, first, let's call that expression. So evaluate that expression. We evaluate that, and now we can go in the foo buff, and we see we have foo in the foo buffer, and if we go to the buffer bar, we also put the content of foo buff into that buffer. So let's go back here, and we are going to now change the name of the process to call it ChatGPT, because this is the package that we are writing. We are going to change the buffer and the buffer in which we append the request. First, we are going to rename the process buffer name to ChatGPT instead of foo name. We do the same with the process buffer name, which receive the output of the process, so we call it ChatGPT. This is okay, and now we evaluate that expression, and we see that in ChatGPT buffer we have the content foo of the command line that we've run. Okay, but the thing is, if we keep just that buffer name for each request that we are going to do after to OpenAI, we are going to reuse the same buffer. So one, if we want to do a concurrent request, this is a problem. And two, to handle the JSON response in that buffer, it's better to have one buffer for one request. So what we can do here is to call the function generate new buffer name, and if we go at the end of the line and we evaluate just that last expression, we can see as ChatGPT buffer already exists, the name that we get, we see in the echo area is ChatGPT with 2. So now our process buffer will be unique for each call. Perfect. We can check that and evaluate the whole expression, and now we have two ChatGPT buffer, and we have the second one that correspond to the last expression that we evaluated and the last process that we run. Now let's finish with the renaming of buffer and process name, and we are going to call the buffer where we append the responses will no longer be a name bar, but ChatGPT request, and we end with a star. And now let's call that expression again and see if we go to that buffer ChatGPT request, we see that we have a foo appended. But to be sure that that we are really appending, instead of just inserting a standard out, we must go to car, and we want to go to the last point in the buffer. If we don't do that, we don't know if they are going to be appended to that buffer, depending of if we moved the point in the buffer. So to check that, we are going to change a little bit the command line, and instead of printed out foo, we are going to print out bar. We evaluate that expression, and now we go back to that file, and we have bar that is appended to that buffer. Each time we call a makeProcess, we use a different process buffer. And as we are not killing them after using them, we are going to end up with too many of such process buffer. For instance, right now we have 4 of them, and really we don't want them to be around in our Emacs session. So what can we do is just after using it, we kill it. So after that let expression, we are going to add a kill buffer. So we kill the buffer, we want to kill the process buffer that we get like that, and for the process that is the argument of the Sentinel function. So now we are going to evaluate that expression, and we can see if we want to check for the process buffer, which would be ending with a 5. We don't have it because we killed it. In this section, we are going to send our first request to OpenAI from Emacs Lisp. To do that, we are going to modify the makes process call that we've written just before, and we specifically are going to replace the echo bar command with the command that we see at the top, which is the curl request that we've written in the first lesson, which send the request in the file request.json that we see here, which just send the prompt hello. So let's copy the curl command. We do that, we go at the top, we do let, and we want the command, and the command will be, so we bind the command to that curl request, and then we change, we remove echo bar and we pass command, and now we are going to evaluate that expression, and we will see normally in the ChatGPT request buffer the response from OpenAI, the JSON response. So we evaluate that, and now we go in that buffer, and this is what we get. We get the JSON response appended to that buffer, and we see at the top we have a foo barbar, which corresponds to the previous call that we did. Finally, we can write the command chatgpt-send, which sends the request with the prompt hello to OpenAI. So before we do that, we check the buffer ChatGPT request and we empty it to be sure that our command is working correctly. Now we define that command using the macro define, chatgpt-send, it's its name, and we pass it no argument. The docstring can be so send the request hello to OpenAI. So we have that. So far this is in function, but as we want it to be a command, we have to add interactive. So now we evaluate that expression, which defines the function chatgpt-send, and now meta x we see it here. We call that function, and we are going to check in the buffer ChatGPT request that we get a response, a JSON response from OpenAI to our request hello. Next time, we're going to extract the code about the curl command line into its own function.